Today I'll be teaching you how to do Poorvar in the Armenian Apostolic Church. First, I just want to note that I'll be giving you just general notes, pretty much a crash course on how to do Poorvar, the methods, how to hold it, the meaning, and the different ways, the variations of swinging the Poorvar, how to hold the Poorvar, and specific moments of the Divine Liturgy that you should be aware of. I cannot teach you the entire Badarak, how to do Poorvar for the entire Badarak in this time. I want to make this video as short, as concise as possible for you. That being said, the best way to learn Poorvar is to watch the services, whether the Divine Liturgy, the Vokhchooyns, the whatever service that you want to do. You should watch it, study it, just like for an exam. You should not come to the Divine Liturgy for the first time to do Poorvar. For the first time you're doing Poorvar, come to a Divine Liturgy and do it during the Divine Liturgy. Please don't do that. It will cause a distraction for everyone. And we do not want the charcoal and everything to fall out and cause damage or burn the rugs or whatever in the church. So please study the Poorvar. Please study the Poorvar Agir. Watch the Divine Liturgy of your church. If you don't do live streams, if there's no live streams in your church, watch the Holy Sees, Holy See Echmiazin, if they do live streams. I know Antilias does live streams, Holy See of Cilicia. Watch their live streams on YouTube and just study what the Poorvar Agir is doing. When is the Poorvar Agir moving? How many times the Poorvar Agir is swinging the Poorvar, the censer? How many times he's swinging it? How many times, or when, during which hymn, Shalagan, that he's moving on the altar? Just these specific details. Watch the Badarak, study at home, make your own mimic Poorvar with a string and a weight on the end, or come before the Badarak or after the Badarak. If the priest is available, ask the priest to teach you or help you to learn the Poorvar. So first, let me explain to you the meaning of the Poorvar. Now the Poorvar has a lot of meaning that not many know about. So let's start from the top. The only thing that doesn't hold any meaning are these two rings here, which, as you can see, I'm holding. This is the best way to hold the Poorvar, as you are giving it to someone. When you give it to a priest, when you give it to a sirpazan, when you give it to a deacon, when you want to transfer the Poorvar to someone else, you hold it by the rings and you give it to the other person. Actually, it's for practical purposes. Now you have this metal piece, which we'll get to in a second, but you see there are 4 chains. When you look at the base of the Poorvar, you can see that there are 3 chains on the outer rim and 1 chain in the middle. What do the outer chains represent? There's 3 chains on the outer rim, which represent the persons of the Holy Trinity: the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. The middle chain represents one God. We do not worship 3 gods, but these distinct beings, not separate beings, distinct beings in the Holy Trinity are one, are united, and that's what this metal piece also represents. The unification of these 3 strings. They're all one. Now you can see on the strings there are bells. Each string has 3 bells. Do the multiplication. 3 times 4 is 12 bells. What does the number 12 represent? What does that mean? Why 12 bells? There are 12 apostles, and that's what these bells represent. Each bell represents an apostle. And as you do Poorvar, the bells are singing. That's where the sound of the Poorvar comes from, the censer. It comes from the bells. So when you are swinging the Poorvar, the apostles are singing when you do Poorvar. Now as we move down, now you have the body, the base of the Poorvar. As you can see, this specific Poorvar has the kumpet, the top of the church, with a cross. And then some decorations on the bottom here. This obviously represents the church because it has the kumpet, the church, the entire church, the saints, the apostles, the congregation, the priests, the deacons, everyone in our church is represented with this base. When you open up the base, there's a bowl. Now, some Poorvars may not have a bowl, but in general, there's a bowl. This bowl represents the Holy Virgin Mary's womb. Surp Asvazazinin Harkanta. Surp Asfadazin Arganta. The womb which we place the coal in. What does the coal represent? The coal represents Jesus Christ, who was in the womb of the Virgin Mary. And we light the coal, which represents the divinity of Christ. The coal itself represents the humanity of Christ. So in that way, when we light the coal, it's on fire. So the coal doesn't burn up and just vanish, it turns into dust, but it doesn't just poof, go away and disappear. But it stays on fire, it's lit. So it represents the fully divine Jesus Christ, the fully human Jesus Christ. So the humanity and the divinity, full humanity and divinity of Jesus Christ at the same time. He was not only divine, he was not only human, but both human and fully divine. And we put the incense also on the coal, which represents our prayers. When you put the incense on the charcoal, it will give off smoke, and that smoke represents our prayers ascending up into heaven. And that's almost like a visual. When you pray, you see that the Poorvar, the smoke is coming out, and it's nice to see that your prayers are, it's like a visual, like an icon almost, of how our prayers are ascending up into heaven to God, who listens to all of our prayers. Now, let me teach you how to hold the Poorvar. There are a couple different ways to hold the Poorvar. One way is just as you cross yourself with your 3 fingers, you open up these 3 fingers, unify these index and middle finger, and you see that there are now 3 chains on one side. So if you split it up, instead of holding it like this, the Poorvar, hold it to its side. You see there's 3 chains here, 1 chain here. Put your 2 fingers on the 3 chains, and put your thumb on the individual chain, on the singular chain. Hold them together, and you hold the Poorvar, just like this. Now I do a different way, an alternate way. Why? Because when you hold the Poorvar like this, when it comes time to bless the Khung, which here's the Khungaman, you should always hold the Khungaman as the Poorvar. Always. During the Tapor, every time you do Poorvar, you should hold the Khungaman in your hand. Unless you have a book. In that case, if you're following along the Badarak with a book, that's a valid exemption, a valid excuse to why you aren't holding it. But if you are not looking at a book, you should not be going around doing Poorvar with an empty hand. You should always be holding this Khungaman. When it comes time to do Yevyevas and bless the Khum, the incense, here's an issue. How are you going to raise this so that the priest will be able to put the incense inside of the bowl in the Khum, in the Poorvar? There's an issue there. Now, when you're holding the Khungaman, now you have to raise the chain, lower the chain. It's very hard. So what I do is, you take these 3 chains, you get your ring finger here. You take the middle chain. This is the middle chain. As you can see, that changes the height of the top of the Poorvar. You put your ring finger inside of this chain, like this, like a ring, on your ring finger. And with the rest of your hand, just hold the other chains, just like on the first method. But now, when it comes time to do Yevyevas, you can simply raise it up and twist your hand, and it will raise the top of the Poorvar. So it's easy for the priest to now put the Khung in. Another reason why I do this is so that when you do Poorvar, it's natural that the Poorvar is going to start twisting like this while you do Poorvar. And as you can see, when I do this, it keeps twisting now. It's just going to keep twisting. The Poorvar is just going to twist. These chains are going to get twisted, and it's annoying to deal with. So what I do is I put my ring finger here so that it stops the twisting of the Poorvar. Now, it will still twist, but it will correct itself. If I twist it like this now, it's still twisting, but after a few seconds, it goes back to normal, and it stops twisting. In this way, it'll prevent the Poorvar from twisting and distracting you. Those are a couple ways of how to hold the Poorvar. Now, I want to give you some tips now. So, you should first master the technique of swinging the Poorvar before you do Poorvar. Why? So that you don't make a mistake and accidentally spill the charcoal on the rug, on the wooden floor or the altar, or you don't want anything to burn in the church. So master the technique first, and then learning the movements can be done afterwards with experience or studying. But you should master the technique. Like I said, you can make a mimic of Poorvar, where you get a string and you put a weight on the end. Or you can ask your parish priest to give you the Poorvar before Badarak, after Badarak, and you can simply just practice swinging the Poorvar. So you can get a feel for the Poorvar. Also, another note is, when you hold the Poorvar, you should hold it as high up as possible. When you hold it down like this metal piece is now loose, and it's going to hit your hand, and trust me, that is very painful. So try and hold it as high as possible. Get used to that, so you don't have to endure 2 hours of pain during the Badarak. Another tip is to have spatial awareness while you do Poorvar. You are the most dangerous altar server. You're holding a very heavy piece of metal in your hand, and you're swinging it. If this hits someone's head, it will hurt. So you want to make sure that you always know and you have the control of the Poorvar. You always have the Poorvar under your control. The Poorvar is not controlling you, but you are controlling the Poorvar. So you should know exactly how far the Poorvar is going, how far back the Poorvar is going, how far up, and you should be able to control the Poorvar. And this comes with experience. If you keep doing Poorvar, mastering the technique, as I just mentioned, you will learn where the Poorvar is at all times, and you'll have spatial awareness. You do not want to go into, let's say, when you're walking across the altar while doing Poorvar, you don't want to hit a candle. You don't want to hit the altar, because if you do, then the charcoal is going to spill everywhere and you might hurt someone. So always have spatial awareness of where your Poorvar is. That's the most important, because you do not want to hit anyone, especially the dead high soup, the celebrant. You do not want to hit them. Another thing is the incense. How much smoke is coming out of the Poorvar? Now, smaller incense will burn out quicker. So if you put a smaller piece of incense in, it's going to give off an initial big smoke cloud of incense, and it will not last long. It's pretty much like an initial, like a smoke grenade. You put it down, poof, and then it goes away in a few minutes, 1 or 2 minutes. The bigger pieces give off less smoke, but they last longer. So it's important to understand how much smoke is coming out of your Poorvar. If you're putting too much incense, you're like creating a cloud in the church. I am for always having smoke coming out of your Poorvar, but too much smoke will cause everyone to choke up, especially the deacons and the elderly in the church will have breathing issues, and you do not want that. So always keep the control of the incense. If there's too little smoke, do not put smoke in front of everyone. Go behind the altar, put a spoonful in, come back to your position. If there's too much, you can simply lower the top of the Poorvar so that it's completely closed, and that will limit the smoke. That will constrain the fire, less smoke. Another thing is when you give the Poorvar to the dead hide or the celebrant, you should always kiss their hand. So imagine this hand is the priest. You give the Poorvar to them, they grab it, you kiss their hand. Every time. You do not do this for a deacon, but it's a sign of respect that when you give the Poorvar, you kiss the hand of the priest. It's a sign of respect, and it's a tradition. Now I will show you how to actually swing the Poorvar. There are definitely different ways to swing the Poorvar. Every deacon does it a different way. Every church does it a different way. You should feel the techniques. Try the techniques and see which one is more comfortable for you. And you can mix and match. Depending on different situations, you can change the different techniques so that you have spatial awareness. If you have spatial awareness, you know that your Poorvar, for example, surp, when you're standing right behind the celebrant, you do not want to hit the celebrant. So what you do is you change the technique to limit the amount of how far the Poorvar is going so you don't accidentally hit the celebrant, for example. So let's start. Let me show you with this hand. Positions that your Poorvar is going. Position 1, this is the simplest way to do Poorvar. Position 1, position 2. Position 1, position 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. A variation on all these techniques that I will show you is adding a third hit. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So that the bells will give off more sound or more consistent sound so that you can hear the Poorvar, it's nice to hear the Poorvar's bells ringing while you're doing Poorvar. So that you add the third hit, like a hammer hit. It's like hitting a nail with a hammer, like this. You're pretty much doing the same thing. 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. If you slow the video down, you will see. Let me move closer a little bit. I'm almost letting the Poorvar drop in the air and recovering it so that the bells will have a hit like this. So that it makes sound. The inside ball in the pojosh or the bell will give that sound. Now another method, which is a lot more natural, is letting the Poorvar swing like a regular swing on a park, on a playground, like this. Now something to note is your hand should always be your arm should always be at a 90-degree angle like this. You should not hold the Poorvar like this, or hold it like this. A good tip that some people give, Derhars give, is that you should be able to hold a book under your armpit while you do Poorvar, like a soldier. Now, you don't actually have to hold a book under your armpit, but just to understand how to hold your hand while you're doing Poorvar. So as you let it swing, see how it's going behind my arm? Now let's add the hits. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. See how it's going behind? It's swinging. But I'm adding those hits in so the sound comes out of the Poorvar. Again, you can do that without the hit in the middle. Another way is to do it high up, which, for example, sur. You do not want to hit the priest, the celebrant, in the back of the head. So what you do is instead of throwing the Poorvar forward, you throw it up like this, so that it restricts the amount of how far the Poorvar is going. Let me show you. Pretty much the exact same thing as the first technique that I showed you of 1, 2, 1, 2, but instead of 2 being here, it's all the way up here. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. You can do the same thing with the swing technique. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And another method is, you will see this, there will be a point in the Badarak where you have to do mini Poorvar, as we say. You get your fingers, just as you hold it, you cross yourself, same thing. You put it about, let's say, 3/4 of the way down. Hold it like this, and put your index finger in the rings at the top. Hold it like this, your hand, like you're praying, like when you do Harmer. And you do the simple method. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So every time the priest blesses the nishchar, the bread and the wine, you do 3 times. Blesses it. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And you do this a total of 9 times. And you can study this when when you're studying the Divine Liturgy, the Badarak. Another very, I don't want to say debate, but another discussion is how many times you swing the Poorvar during Khaghaghootyoon. When the priest turns around and gives the blessing like this, the Poorvar I give turns around and does Poorvar. But how many times do you swing the Poorvar is the question. Now, some say, I've heard Sabkhazan say that 9 is the best number, as you do 3 times for each person of the Trinity. But I personally do 11 times, which honestly is the easiest for me, and it holds the best meaning, in my opinion, the best symbolism. So first, some people do 3 times. When both you and the priest are facing this way, the priest turns around, you simply turn around, and you do 3 times. 1, 2, 3, and you turn back around. Another is to do 7 times, where you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So if you can see, I'm doing 1 Poorvar at the altar, 1 at the baptismal font, 3 to the people, another back to the baptismal font, and then 1 to the altar. So you're pretty much moving in 90 degrees. So 1 here, 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 90 degrees for a total of 7. Then there's 9 times where you do 1, 2, 3, so you go down at a 45-degree angle, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So you're pretty much, I don't know how I can show you this, but you pretty much do every corner of the church. Let me show you. One, 2 to the baptismal font, 3 to the right corner of the church, 4 to directly down the Adyan, directly to the middle of the church, another one to the left corner of the church, another one to the middle, another one to the right corner, another one to the baptismal font, and 1 to the altar. Now let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now, the 11 is simply just adding a Poorvar to the priest. So you pretty much just rotate 45 degrees. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you can't see, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Let me show you. 1 to the altar, 1 to the priest, 1 to the baptismal font, 1 to the right corner, 1 to the middle, 1 to the left corner, 1 to the middle, 1 to the right corner, 1 to the baptismal font, 1 to the priest, and 1 to the altar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So you're pretty much doing Poorvar to everyone in the church, to the 3 sides of the church, to the baptismal font, to the priest, to the altar. You're doing Poorvar to everyone, and that's why I do personal 11, and it's also the easiest to do for my personal technique. And also minor parts of the Divine Liturgy. When you do Vokhchooyn, now let me go on the altar for this one. When you do Vokhchooyn, the priest will turn. So if the priest is standing like this, he will turn his body like this. In that case, you are standing forward. You also turn to the chalice. So instead of the gospel Badarak here, there will be the chalice. And you face the chalice. And that's almost like your cue of doing that. The Vokhchooyn is about to happen. The priest turns. You now know. Vokhchooyn Dukminians. You also turn. You do 3 times the Poorvar to the chalice. And you bow. That's another thing. always bow on the third time. Some say you should bow on the first one. It doesn't matter necessarily. But you should bow every time you do a set of Poorvar. So 1, 2, 3. You walk up to the chalice, and the priest will be holding his hands like this, like a prayer hands. Just like this. You will kiss his hand, and you will kiss the altar table. The priest will say, Christos imech mer haitnetsav, and you will respond, Orthodox Khaghaghootyoon Christosi.
Vokhchooyn Armenian, Vokhchooyn Christosi imech mer haitnetsav, Orthodox Khaghaghootyoon Christosi.
Now when you come down, there will be someone here waiting for you. If it's just a regular lay person or a deacon, you simply just give them the kiss of peace, the Vokhchooyn. Christos imech mer haitnetsav. If it's a harsur, if it's a clergyman in general, derhal, harsur, sırpazan, vehapar, whoever it is, a priest or a bishop, you must come down, and before you do anything, you have to do 3 times to him. Bow, bring up your Poorvar, take your hand, lay the bells on your hand, like this, go up to the priest and kiss his hand, and then now you can proceed back up. Take your position and say, Ortniader. Bless them, Lord. The priest will turn around and give the blessing.
Christos imech mer haitnetsav.
And you will continue the Divine Liturgy in this way. And that is pretty much a crash course on how to do Poorvar during the Badarak. And obviously, in any situation, but during the prayer hours, the Khaghaghootyoons, there are some different hymns. You should learn exactly which hymns that you move around on the altar as a Poorvaragir, or which cues. For example, Joshua Sharagan is sung. Der Takavuriat Vajachunus gets off. You know that the Joshua Sharagan begins, you're standing there, the choir is singing, and you should move around to the other altar to prepare for Surpasvad, because Surpasvad you need to do Poorvar, to the procession of the gospel. So these cues you should learn, and the more you learn the Badarak, the more you study the Badarak, the more you will learn these cues. And in this way, I hope that all of you will study and learn how to do Poorvar the correct way in our church, with the help of your parish priest, of course, and that I hope that all of you will become good Poorvaragirs in our church, so that during the Divine Liturgy, we can all pray without distraction and glorify the beauty of the Poorvar.